Hey everybody, Jess Intuitive Angel Healer here with your Grounded. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today and welcome to another episode of Your Angels Are Talking. Are You Listening? Inspirational stories of angelic and universal miracles. This podcast is all about the magic that the universe contains and to help open your eyes and mind to the fact that we turn a blind eye to spirit, and this causes us to miss out on the joy each day holds. Abundance is all around us and comes in many different forms. But how often do we take the time to count our blessings? Say thank you to the universe just for waking us up today, or just be content with the love inside our souls. If you are wondering or asking yourself right now, how do I break up with fear and embrace the miracles of the angels so I can create the life that I desire? Well, the universe has brought you to the right podcast. Today, our special guest story may just turn you into a believer if you aren't already. So today is episode 10, and I am super excited. It is the last episode of my season, and I am so humbly joined by Alex Levy, also known as Alex Levy Intuitive on Instagram. He is in Atlanta, Georgia. He's a spiritual life coach, intuitive guide, oracle card creator, and podcast of Spirit Guided Life. And he was also rated by Buzzfeed as top 7 of males oracle card readers. So I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. Welcome to our show, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Jess, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you, a privilege to spend some time with your audience, and congratulations on your show. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. I am excited to have you here. You're going to tell us all about your journey to becoming Alex Intuitive. You weren't always known as that. You actually started out in the theater, if I'm correct. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and you just go ahead and tell us all about how you became Alex Intuitive.
Well, I think looking back now, it's kind of easy to see how these intuitive threads were always there. But yeah, you're right. I did start from the age of 6, a theater background, and I was always involved heavily in the arts, visual and performing arts, but specifically theater. And I went to college and studied that. And I was at a conservatory program. And it was like towards halfway through there that I just kind of realized this isn't really what I'm supposed to be doing. It's what I thought I was always going to be doing. And then all of a sudden, kind of my whole world kind of shifted and changed. And I decided to leave performing, didn't know what my next step would be. And there were there was a little time in there where I was kind of floundering for a while before I kind of found my next step. But all the while, I was always kind of going back to my kind of fascination and love for the spiritual and metaphysical world. I got my first card deck when I think I was 13 or 12. So I've always been interested in cards. I was always getting readings. So I just kind of felt this pull to kind of move back into that world. And that's kind of how I ended up, long story short, doing the work that I'm doing. I'm grateful for my theater background because I definitely feel like I've met a lot of other readers and intuitives who have a similar background. And I definitely think there's something about imagination and creativity that connects so easily to intuition. I think it's all so interconnected. So I feel like it really helped me shift into this line of work fairly easily.
I know that your 13-year-old self giving spirit messages compared to your adult self giving spirit messages. I could definitely see that would be a change, but how did you get inspired to go from reading other people's cards to creating your own oracle spirit guided cards?
Great question. It was something that I think I always wanted to do. And in fact, I remember when I was really young, like around probably even, must have been right when I started getting into cards around 13, I remember my mom, she's an art teacher, she was, and I wanted to even then to kind of create my own deck. So I remember she got me like all of her really good like art paper, and we got like watercolors out, and I started like making cards back then. So I wish I would have saved some of those, and we even took them to get them laminated, and it wasn't
Wow.
like a whole deck, but it probably was maybe like 10, 15
You have
cards.
a really cool mom, I'm just saying.
I do. She's a really awesome mom. But yeah, I guess I always wanted to create a card, but I wasn't actively seeking out creating a deck. They came to me in 2017. I've shared this story sometime a couple other times, but it really like it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't like a goal I had written down like I'm going to make a deck. Quite literally, it was probably one of the biggest kind of psychic downloads that I've ever gotten. Quite literally, it woke me up in the middle of the night when I just started to see cards in my head. And I saw what the titles were, I saw the names of them, I started to see the meanings of them. So, I mean, Spirit was definitely nudging me that night. I got out of bed and I grabbed a notebook, and I think I wrote down 8 cards that first night. And then over the course of about 2 weeks, all the other cards were channeled to me. I didn't really, I felt like it was pretty easy. I didn't really work on creating the cards. I just wanted them to kind of come organically, and it happened. But it was a long road to getting them out and published. It took about almost 3 years from start to finish before they got out there. But yeah, it was not even on my radar. But once I had that download and they started coming to me, I was like, this is something I've got to do. I didn't know how to do it. I had no idea how I was going to find an illustrator to kind of bring the cards to life. I didn't know, how I was going to print them and publish them. And all of that fell into place, and it fell into place so perfectly. That's kind of why I called it Spirit Guided, because everything along the way of creating this deck was truly synchronicity and spirit. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
I love spirit stories, and it's so funny how spirit guides us all the time, and you never know. Like, for example, I've been working on my rebranding because I'm going on my 3rd year working on branding myself too, because my biggest thing is I didn't know how to market my spiritual services when I first started, because everybody gave me the, well, that's weird, why would you do that? And so I had to get comfortable with that. But while I was watching TV last night, and all of a sudden I swear Spirit does this, and it cracks me up. Spirit team love, that's the only way they get into what you resonate with. So if all of a sudden I'm watching a literal sitcom and they're talking about, it starts going, what about marketing, Dad? What about my new marketing plan? And what if I did this? And she had a pop-up store, and it's like, well, that didn't work. And it was just so weird, because it was like Spirit was telling, and me and my boyfriend looked at each other and said, are you listening to this? Because we're both listening to this, and holy cow. Okay, yes, I'm in the middle of it. So I just love how Spirit talks to us. And I love that you embrace, it's all about, Spirit talks to all of us, but how many of us actually internalize it? And so when did you decide that it was time for you to really start putting, become a light worker and really start helping people? Because all of us, we all dabble in cards and play, but not everybody makes it their life's work to really make it more.
Yeah. I think it was a culmination of a little things that kept popping up. And I remember I was going through, I had a really bad episode. I had never had it before. I had out of nowhere. And I thought, this is crazy. Like, I'm covered in, all these marks, shingles. I had shingles. And, the more I realized, like, while that was happening, the shingles thing, I was like, the doctor, of course, stress is kind of an underlying thing, which we now know stress affects so many things. And I realized, like, I had been stuffing down stuff for so long, and I knew that what we hold inside of us, will eventually, if we don't express it, manifest in some ways. And after that kind of bout with shingles, I realized, what, like, I can't keep putting this off, that this is what I really want to do. So it was right around that time, after that, I was like, okay, that was like a warning sign. Like, I need to really step into this, like you said, step into this path as a light worker. So, I mean, I started like a little Facebook page. I don't think I did Instagram in the beginning, and I had no clue what I was doing. But I just started taking classes, and I took class after class, and gradually things started happening. And sure, there was a lot of nervousness. I know people talk about like coming out of the spiritual closet. It was scary, but the response I got was so welcoming and warm. And then once I made that step to, deliberately and consciously step into this path, it's like there's no going back. I mean, everything, my whole world has shifted and changed, and all these opportunities that have come about since becoming a spiritual entrepreneur it's been life changing.
That's exciting, and that's why I wanted you to bring you on my show, because I admire your attitude about everything, because it's different being a spiritual entrepreneur. But after I started getting over my ego and the fact that I was worried about all these people who didn't obviously care that much about me, because if they did, those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
But we hold on to all these crappy people that you're like, why am I holding on to you? It's like a bad ex-boyfriend. Why am I holding on to you when I have people like you out in the world that if I can just let go of my past and all my toxic patterns and all these generational things that have been taught to me, we have the opportunity to move forward and create the life of our dreams. And I've always really resonated with Tinkerbell and Peter Pan off of Hook. It's kind of like, I feel like sometimes I'm the Lost Boys, where they have to use their imagination or they can't eat. And he's like, and Robin Williams goes there and goes, what are you guys doing? There's no food here. But when he started believing, things started. And that's what I've went through in the past 3 or 4 years, is I'm starting to notice all this stuff that I've been wanting and hoping for has always been around me. Myself just never put myself on the playing field. I'm over here on a basketball court for the Utah Jazz, and I'm supposed to be on the Green Bay Packers field.
Yeah.
So I'm finally there now, but it's a train to get on. How has all of these experiences permanently changed your daily mindset and help you to overcome the fear? Because like I said, it's easier said than done to be a public figure and get out there, and everybody can do it, but longevity of keep going out there. What keeps you on your path of not letting fear rule and living out your dreams?
I think that I have to remember that I'm doing this from a place of service. And I think by going back to a place of fear, I think it's about staying of service. And it's something that I have to remind myself of from time to time, that I'm here to be of service to people. And I think when you do that, and when you come at this from a place of that mentality or mindset, you stay at a heart-centered spot, which is where I want to operate from, because I know I can't listen to my higher guidance, or I'm not connected to other people's guides or angels if I'm not operating from my heart center. So for me, it's about connecting to my heart center and remembering that I'm here to be of service.
That is so true. And that's what I remind myself. And that's why I can get over, any fears, underlying fears that I battle. And it's funny because when I still have the message that I sent you like a year ago in January in 2019, and it's when your podcast came out, and I sent you a message, and I was like, because I was thinking about, hey, I want to ask him if he'll be on my show. But then I've come across a bunch of different people. So I was like, it took me a couple weeks to get up enough courage to ask. But then at one point I was like, you know what, you better just send that message over to him, because this is what you're working on, is to get over that mindset. Because I've unfortunately endured a lot of trauma in my life, and I've had not just, regular life to overcome, but I've had and I think light workers, we have this in common. We have like an extra amount of BS that comes our way, a lot less normal than the rest. Like everybody's got their own set of problems, but I really feel light workers are like, we put a little extra frosting on the cake or something when we came to figure out our lessons. But I thought this was my whole thing, is I was like, you can't sit here and be a spiritual teacher and then you have this deep dark secret that you can't even go send a message over, because what's the worst they could do? Say no. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna send it out. And when you said yes, I was like, well, there you go. Thank you, angels, because if it's meant to be, it'll always be. Gotta
Yeah.
have faith.
Gotta have faith. And we get stuck in these stories we tell ourselves, and we create these beliefs that we think are true, but they're not. So, it's important to really be willing to question your beliefs, like, and look at, if something keeps coming up for you, or if it's something that is a pattern that keeps happening, ask yourself, like, is this actually true? And 9 times out of 10, it's probably not. It's something that we create. And it's the story that we keep telling. And, I'm guilty of it myself. So many of us do this. So I think that I'm glad that you finally went through and just said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And you just listened and tuned in with yourself.
This goes back to, you actually dive into the Akashic records and you do those kind of readings. So could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that kind of goes to about the conditioning and everything. We actually have a whole spot where you can get your understanding, and I've kind of dabbled in it a little bit, past lives, and I picked up a card one day and I did myself a past life reading, and the Akashic records actually goes deeper. You're going to tell us, but I found it very interesting to find out. You can find out what karmic lessons, because at one point I was like, okay, if something keeps repetitively happening, at some point you got to be like, whoa, stop the carousel. Why does this keep happening? I'm a logical thinker, I have to be like, there's a reason for everything. And then when I figured out it's a karmic lesson you're trying to get over here, and it's helped me to get that whole mindset to change really how I'm doing everything. So if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
The Akashic records, for those of you who aren't familiar, they are like this universal kind of global Google memory bank that is a memory banks of the collective, of everybody, of your soul, of events, of situations, of everything that's ever happened. So it's really cool to be able to connect with the energy of the Akasha, to go deeper. And this is something that I had always had an interest in, but this is probably the last thing that developed for me with my readings offerings. I'd always heard about it. I've read about it. Had this interest, but I hadn't really dived into it until about a year ago. I have learned so much from the Akashic record. It's kind of like a soul blueprint of, I like to think of it as the equivalent to, it's like a natal chart from astrology, but of your soul. And it has nothing to do with astrology, but it's a similar kind of like makeup of what really makes you you. And like you said, you can look at your deeper karmic lessons, and you can look at archetypes, which I think are really fascinating, because archetypes, I think they're kind of like soul gifts that we have. And so many cool things. You can look at your energy center of training, which is really neat. You can look at your soul group of origin. And I know this is a big one for light workers, or for people who feel like they're like a star seed, like they just feel kind of like, I don't know about if you feel like this, Jess, but you feel like maybe you're just kind of like, you never really fit into this kind of world. Like we're aliens, right?
So my boyfriend made a joke the other day. He said, "You're just waiting for the guy to come out of the clouds and say, I'm pop out and go, I'm just changing a light bulb here."
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel some days. Yes.
Totally, right? So most light workers or empaths, intuitives, they just feel like they're not really from here, or they've been around a long time. And so the Akashic Records is a really cool way to find that deeper snapshot and kind of understand really why do I do things the way I do, and what is the deeper soul makeup of me. So I find Akashic records are a lot deeper than you would go through a regular like intuitive work, or even through like a spiritual healing. And it's something that anybody can and explore. It's really fun.
Yeah, I encourage you, if you haven't got a reading like that, to get one from myself or from Alex, because it'll change your viewpoint. Instead of you being resentful and hateful of why a situation keeps happening, I couldn't figure out, why do I get a fight or flight of money? I'm either really wealthy or I'm really poor, and it's been that way my whole life. And I figured out, apparently, in my past life, unfortunately, I guess I was a businessman, and I was kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge. I was money, 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 and I spent it all on me, and I spent it on bad things, and they were just all dark things that I spent it on. And so guess what you do? That's what karma is when you get to your next lifetime. Apparently I'm a little slow, because I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes and I never quite got the message until finally this one. I think my angel team were like, look, we got to get her back up here. Okay, I've been covering all her classes. I'm tired. She needs to get her lessons learned and come back up here, because this is my theory, is that we reincarnate here to come to figure out our karmic lessons and to fix them, because this is the only plane that we can come and have the ability to do all that. But I kind of feel like I was up there and I was at the meeting table with all the head angels, and I was like, look, I want to take on 5 karmic lessons and I want this. And they're like, whoa, 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 you need to slow down, cowboy. Like, you can't handle all that. And I'm like, I'm Jesse, I can handle it. Because when I came down here, like, I've lived through some things, and I had a near death experience, which I was kind of discussing in Atlanta, where you're at. And when I was 19, the podcast series, I told my story, and it's crazy that I had my first angelic experience because I was going 100 miles an hour in a car and flipped over, and there were 6 people in there, and nobody had a seatbelt on, and everybody lived. And a carload of nurses happened to stop off to check on us before the ambulance even got there. So that's very big. I'm very big on divine intervention. And I believe that we come down here for a purpose, but we get blinded by all the sparkly things and all the distractions, because it's kind of like, those movies you watch. They come down, they're supposed to have a purpose, and then they're like, ooh, I haven't had a donut in like 5,000 years. And then they get distracted from their work. But how can people out there start beginning to connect to their intuition so they can have their connection to their angels?
I think it first comes with acknowledging that you are intuitive. A lot of people think that it's just a gift, only certain people have it, or you have to be, a psychic or whatnot. But we are all intuitive. And I always like to think that our intuition is our first sense, it's not our sixth sense. So just know that you are intuitive right now. You've always been. So it just starts with learning to acknowledge that and be willing to play with your intuition. Have fun with it and listen. And I think oftentimes people get confused with the listening aspect because they're expecting to hear like this booming voice, come down and
Glowing
say,
lights.
do this, right? Going, or, perhaps like, with me, like that when I had kind of like a download to do my cards, that's very far and few between where I have moments like that. It's so subtle, I find, and it's very kind of calm. And I like to think that our intuition is like more of like an elevated, quieter kind of version of our own voice. So it's easy to kind of bypass that and say, well, I'm just making that up, but you're not. So you just have to be willing to be aware and tune in. And, also sometimes no answer is an answer in and of itself. So if you feel like you're not getting an answer, if you're feeling like you're not hearing anything, that might be what you need as the answer for that situation. So it's just about keeping that awareness open. And your intuition, it's always there. We've all got it. Everybody has it.
That is so true. I think if we pay more attention, now that I have finally gotten over this block and stopped worrying about what everybody cared and thought, and I think it has to do with having a bunch of narcissists in my life because I'm a very strong person, but narcissists do a different kind of work on your brain. They don't just come over and they're not a mean bully for like 5 minutes. They literally like plan and write down in their journal how they're going to take control of you for the rest of their life. So coming over all that, I find that I get downloads too, but they don't happen every day. And that's the misconception about spirituality. Mine come overwhelmingly when they need to get my attention. I see triple B's a lot. Like if I need, and that one really moves me because took me a while to try to figure out what did triple B's mean. And I know when you get a triple anything, that's a universe, that's like our guardian angel number, but it's not a number, it's a letter. So I was like, okay, B is the second letter of the alphabet because I see triple C's too, which
Wow.
is 333. And both of them, when I see them, they make me cry because it's like literally God is coming down to touch me to say, I love you. And it sounds weird to some people, but uh, I can't explain how magical that is to at some point I'm like, I don't care about my ego because this is such an amazing feeling and I feel so amazing that I was chosen to lead something so amazing, like raising the collective vibration of this world. And I'm not just out here, being successful for me. I'm being successful to leave something for my daughter, when I leave this. And I think it's amazing. She can come back and listen to all my podcasts and be like, yeah, my mom was a crazy angel lady, but I love her. That's why I love doing these podcasts. It's great that we can leave our legacy here. Real quick, biggest thing I like to teach is self-care. What does a daily self-care routine look like for you, and what helps you keep your mind, body, and soul balanced to avoid disruption on your current journey?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it's such an important thing. I think for me, I've learned over the years not to let myself get too rigid when it comes to self care and routines, because I have a tendency to get too kind of structured. So I have to give myself permission to be a little bit more free flow. But definitely meditation is a big one. And I really feel like this past summer, I've really kind of re-cemented my commitment to meditating. And then I grew up in Florida. I love warm weather, and I've just always felt like I need to be in the sun. And it's not always possible because I live in, Georgia. We have seasons here. So for me, like making sure I get enough outside time is pretty crucial for part of self-care for me. So whether that's just hanging out outside or taking a walk or just even sun gazing, which is something I love to do in the mornings, connects me back to Mother Earth. And then writing is really healing for me as well. But it flows, I'll do energy healing. I just got a new crystal sound bowl, so I'll play with that sometimes. So oracle cards, I think, are a great form of self-care where you can kind of be creative with it. I pull a card and then journal about it or meditate on it. So, but I would say meditation are the two, like, is the main staple for me.
Yeah, and I always tell people you don't have to just meditate, no me sta, like, you don't have to just sit there because that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. They think that you have to just sit there quietly.
Yeah.
You can actually do things like gazing, writing is a way. And I like to let people know because everybody can do this, but there's so many misconceptions and people don't really explain certain things. So I've learned that we make fun of things that we don't understand.
Yeah,
And that's what
definitely.
happened most of my life. And that's why I'm 39 now going, oh, that wasn't that weird. It actually is true.
Mhm.
Ask you two more things and then I'm going to have you do card reading, share a message with our audience if you don't mind. About your oracle cards, what is your best guidance for someone who's starting out new with oracle cards so they can trust themselves? Because oracle cards are a lot different than tarot cards.
Mhm.
They're a lot easier to work with, but when you have a crucial question you're trying to get across, if you don't ask it the correct way and you keep asking it, you're not going to get a good answer.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think there's validity in predictive. The best tip that I could share is to kind of stay away from asking like predictive type questions. When we ask predictive type stuff, it's actually we're kind of giving our power away. More predictive thing, I'm not saying don't do that. Honestly, there's a guidebook in there, but you don't have to use it. Go with the first impressions you get. That was my intention with creating this deck is, don't worry about if the card is reversed or not. You don't have to shuffle in a special way. You can pull the cards any way you want, and don't worry about what the guidebook says. Go with what you feel when you look at the card. And this is for any deck. Whether the feeling you're getting from the card has nothing to do with the picture, that is okay, because that is your intuition speaking to you. That's what happened when I started reading tarot cards when I was a kid. I was, looking at like Seven of Cups. What are your thoughts when you're looking at it? And just go with it.
And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words too. So
yes.
It's more about studying what that picture makes you feel like too. That's what I always like to let people know. And if you have a really hard question, I tend to ask other people because sometimes I can't get in between me and my ego, and I just need a lifeline outside, because sometimes, if your ego's just, amped up, it's gonna overshadow your own intuition. So you got to make sure you ground yourself too. That's the biggest thing. What guidance do you have for our listeners today about the power of spirit and their beautiful angels and how they can incorporate that into their life and feel the miracles that are surrounding them every day?
So I would say that, well, first and foremost, our guides are always with us, but they're not going to interact with us unless we invite them in, unless we ask them to work with us. There is always free will. That's a really interesting thing about being in this kind of earth schools. We do have the law of free will. So just know that your guides are there. And I always say, like, if you're new to working with your guides and your angels, don't get too caught up on, I need to know their names or what type of guide are they. All of that will come, and maybe it won't. That's okay. But just know that they're there with you, and ask, say, hey guys, I need a little bit of extra support today. Can you work with me? You can meditate with them, create a dialogue. If you want to foster this relationship, you have to communicate, you have to ask, you have to interact with them. Be curious. I think curiosity is a really important part of connecting and getting to know your guides.
That is so true. And I still don't know my guide's name. I don't know if you can tap into that or not and tell me. It might be Elijah, because one day it was weird. That name came into my mind, and like, who says that name all the time? And that name came into my mind, and then like some lotion I was putting on, and literally it came out in 3 dots. It was how to explain it. But I've had a lot of those things, and I feel that that's kind of, if you listen, they'll talk to you, but it's not like, that's the hardest thing I had when I started, was everybody made it like you had to see this big grandiose angels. So I had a hard time going and talking to people about just intuitive angel healer, because they're expecting me to tell this big old huge story that I had Archangel Michael, with his sword flaming. No, I have seen rainbows in the dark on my wall, which is from Archangel Raziel, which was pretty cool. But I've never had, and the reason why they don't present themselves is because I used to be able to see spirits, but I ran away for so long that they were like, I'm tired of you running away from us and being scared. We're not going to present ourselves to you anymore. It's not always what you think, and it's not always what the movies portray it to be either. So I like to make that point, because you understand this, and that's the biggest, hardest block of people connecting to their intuition, is getting over that hump of something that you can't see, but it is just like your breath. You can't see your breath, but you're breathing.
Yeah. Spirit speaks to us through the language of our intuition, which make up our clairs, our seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing. And if you're so laser focused on I have to see something or I have to hear something, what you're actually doing is shutting down all those other clairs and other ways that they can communicate with you. So I would say stop focusing on how you're going to get a message or how the guidance is going to show up, and then trust it can show up in just a gut feeling. You could just have this like instant knowing, like, yeah, that's what it is. You could see something, you could hear something in your inner ear, but it's probably just going to come and flow, and it may be different each time, and that's just kind of how your intuition works.
Yeah, or you could be watching TV and all of a sudden they start speaking through
That
two
too.
TV shows in a row. That was the funniest thing last night. I was like, it's just never ending. But if you want to go ahead and wrap this up with us and give us a spirit guided message for our listeners today, I would be so humbled.
Yeah, I would love to. So
Awesome.
we'll pull a card from the Spirit Guide Oracle. I have no clue. We'll have to give these a big shuffle. Yeah, let's see what happens. Ooh, this is perfect. I love when this stuff happens. The card I got for all of us and for those listening was quiet. And we were just talking about listening, connecting with intuition, right? How cool is this? So it's really about tuning in, letting that dark, I call it your barking dog, your ego, let it kind of step away, get back to your space of your heart center, and just listen, because you have to be aware, right? Everything flows from awareness. So just be willing to go within, kind of get quiet, and that's how you're going to feel like you're more in tune with your intuition, with your guides, with your higher self. So the answers are there. We just have to be willing to listen and kind of find that inner quiet.
That is exciting. And I love it how she's got her finger over her mouth, because that's how I feel like my angels are telling me, shh,
Yeah.
you need to stop talking and listen more. And I'm working on it every day. But I love how, spirit will always give you the right message at the right
Yeah.
time. You just have to tune into it.
Just have to tune in. And it may not be the answer you want, but that's part of it, right? So you have to be willing to listen. And like you said, you got to just tune in. Yeah.
And that's funny because I've actually awareness and acceptance have been really big words that have been a part of, because I teach about narcissism and I teach about letting go of your past. And you got to first have awareness that something's wrong. And then you got to have acceptance that there is something wrong. And then once you have those two, then the divine can flow into your life and help heal you. But I just think that's really cool how spirit tied in that message to
Isn't
all
that
of it.
funny? Yeah. Yeah,
I
you
love
can't
it.
make that stuff up. I mean,
No,
yeah.
and I always tell people, like I went on somebody's show and I gave them, they wanted a message. And I said, I've learned over the years to ask specifically, because if not, I will, they're like, give me a message. And then all of a sudden their dirty laundry is out there. And I'm like, whoa, so be specific when you're talking, because spirit's just like a restaurant. When you ask for something, if you don't order the right, if you order a burger and you wanted a salad, that's what you're going to get. So spirit's the same thing like a restaurant. If you put your order in, know you're going to get it, but you need to be clear about your intentions with it.
Yes.
Well,
Intentionality is everything. Definitely.
very true. Well, thank you so much for coming on my last episode of Your Angels Are Talking. I'm so humbled for you to take your time out and share with us today. How can our listeners reach you if they would like to connect with you?
They can find me, hang out on Instagram quite a bit, Alex Levy _intuitive. And you can always connect with me on my website, alexlevyonline.com. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. It's truly a pleasure, and I had so much fun, and I'm glad I got to be a part of this.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. And helping me with my it is Manifestation Monday, so it's kind of fun that my manifestation came into fruition today and I'm interviewing you. So thanks for
Awesome.
making my day.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, well, there you have it, beautiful souls. Another powerful hour of angelic miracles that you have just personally witnessed. I have goosebumps. My angels are definitely surrounding this beautiful podcast, and I would like to express my gratitude, as I do always at the end of my shows, and say thank you. Thank you to my spirit team, my creator, and all the archangels for being there for me, even when I had a hard time believing. Thank you. And thank you, beautiful souls, for tuning in to another miracle-filled episode of Your Angels Are Talking. Are you listening? Inspirational stories of angelic and universal miracles. Tune in next week to share in more of the love and miracles that our angels create for us daily. This is Just Intuitive Angel Healer sending all of you beautiful souls love and light out there and healing angel vibes. Meet again next time. Take care. Love and light, everybody.